Friday. It was a good Friday, they called it. So, today, let us get together and make this a good Friday. Excuse me. Thank you, everyone, for coming back to join me today as we finish up our Sony PVM 14M2MDU restoration. We spent a lot of time yesterday on a live stream, and just to catch you up briefly kind of on what we've done so far, we have taken apart the CRT, which you can see right here, and in yesterday's stream we serviced the neck board and then the power supply on the other side, and we tested them both and they're working good. They've been cleaned, recapped, and finally we pulled the main A board down here along with our input board, and then we removed all the capacitors on the A board, which was a total of 28 capacitors, and they are right here in this dish, all our capacitors. So those capacitors have been removed, the board's cleaned up, and we are ready to install the new capacitors. And here's the list right here of all our new capacitors that will be going in to our monitor. And again, as this one has been set a little bit customized compared to the normal printout, once I get done with this kit and get it tested and quality controlled, I'll update this list to say MDU for the Patreon members over on Discord. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're just going to get into this finishing steps in this restoration, and we'll get our main board here all figured out and recapped. Now, I did kind of tease that Zez was going to be here, my buddy Lewis from the Cathode Ray podcast. However, he had something come up, so he won't be able to join us today. So it'll just be us breezing through this restoration. And just to give you a couple notes again, if you're joining in, we're in working on this board, and you can still see there's a lot of capacitors on here. Okay, so we don't remove them all. We have specifically removed the capacitors that control geometry in on our set here. So if we look in closer, that's this area. There's 4 capacitors right here. There's another 5 or 6 here, some over in this area, and then there's some sporadically scattered over in this zone. We have about half of them removed for deflection. Same thing in this area over around this chip. There's probably 5 or 6 in this whole zone right here that have been replaced. And then finally, all the ones back in this area, we have removed all those. And one of the things we did yesterday, once we had our capacitors removed, was we changed out those capacitors, and then we tested them using a tester to test and see whether the capacitors were still good that we had removed. And if you remember from our neck board, we actually found one that was failed. It was swollen and bulging, and it was reading really high on our settings, on our ohms meter. So what we'll do is we're going to take a second and we're going to get a reading of a capacitor here that's one of the more important ones. This is the one that is from the red, green, and blue repair, the line repair. It's one of those, and this is the other one. And the interesting thing about these capacitors is Sony was actually concerned about these two, and they're specifically 105 degrees Fahrenheit rated, which is not like the majority of the caps I removed. Most of them are 85 degree rated. But they knew that these were troublesome, and I think this was an important circuit to begin with. So what we'll do is we'll start by switching over here, and we're going to test these capacitors and see if we can't get that reading on there. And I want to say thanks to some people who've just shown up. Belmont, James Boone, Alf, and Ed. Thank you all for showing up today. Good morning. And I just need to do one thing real quick on my settings before we continue on. I'm having a little bit of issues with my overhead camera, and so I'm going to need to scale that down to, unfortunately, 30 frames per second. So hopefully that will remove the stuttering, because I'm seeing some stuttering on my end, and I don't want that to be. I'd rather deal with a lower frame rate. So we're going to test the capacitor with our little tester we showed off. Cheap tester. We just plug it in here, and we're going to hit the button, and let's see what the reading is. This is a 4.7 microfarad, 160 volt capacitor, and we're all the way up to 13 ohms. Hey, Tony. Good to see you this morning. Thank you for coming. But we're all the way up to 13 ohms on this capacitor. And once you get over, like, on a 4.7 microfarad capacitor, once you get over about, I want to say 7 ohms on this capacitor, it's going to be a bad cap or start to fail. So this one is already starting to fail. It didn't look like it was failing. Hey, good to see you guys here. So we've got this one here. It's a 160 volt, 4.7 microfarad capacitor. Hey, Travis, good to see you, man. JT Suter. So anyway, that one's bad. Let's test the other one. This is only a 1 microfarad capacitor. And it is a 160 volt also capacitor. Let's see what it reads. All right, so we're at 3.3 ohms on this one. So it's still, you know, this would still have some life left on it, but this one's definitely one that I would change out. But look at it, it has no visible signs of failing. It's just got a high ohms reading. All right, so that's just an idea that doing this kind of work will prevent you some trouble down the road. So let's get the soldering iron heated up right now. And we're going to get in here and get the capacitor kit ready to install. And this is 28 total capacitors. I've got them all separated in here in my little fishing tackle box, which are super handy for keeping cap kits separated whichever way you want to do it. And I really like these boxes. Okay, so let me shut down some other stuff. All right. So, as I said, we've got our capacitor kit here all pulled out. And I had to order this custom from Mauser. And you can do so from any of your parts suppliers that you like. But what we're going to do is we're going to get in here and follow this guide. And we're just going to start installing the capacitors back in to our board. Let's see if we can get a little bit more overhead light in there for you. And I'll zoom in at certain points so you can take a look at just the workmanship that we're going to be doing. Craftsmanship. Lovely Friday here in Virginia. It is rainy and cooled a little bit. The temperature's gone down a little bit for this day, and not cold or anything, but it is in the 50s in the Fahrenheits, which is unfortunate because the last couple days have been in the 80 degrees, really warm. And now we're looking at a holiday weekend where it's going to be rainy and a little cooler. So we're again replacing the capacitors up in this area. So let's see what we're going to start with. Let's start with our 200s. So got some caps right up here listed as 200. Put that over to the side. Our soldering iron is ready to go. And we'll get in here and install our first capacitor. 207's over here by this red connection point. So it's pretty easy to get to. We'll go ahead and install the capacitor in there. And that is a 25 volt 100 microfarad capacitor. And just like the other boards, you want to make sure that the capacitor is inserted in the correct direction. And I'm not going to solder these one at a time, but I will do it in sections or groups. So that's our 207. Let's get 204 in here too, which is a 50 volt 10. And that's a lovely red capacitor. We'll sit this in here for 204, 50 volt 10. Bend those legs up. Get that ready to go. And then we'll get another 50 volt 10 to go into 208 right next to that. There's another 50 volt 10. And I think that would be a good place to start. Those three capacitors. So let's get those three done. Flip this over. And I'll try to maybe get you a little bit better view if it's helpful. See our legs here for our components. I'm going to tack one leg into place and then I'll tidy it up afterwards. And this is a time when I would really like to have that tool that crimps the legs of components. That would be very nice. Spam Spam phone call, excuse me. So I put my phone on mute. When you own a business and you have a business phone number, you would not believe how many spam calls you get. Because in the United States, it's illegal to call private numbers and try to advertise to them if they don't want to be, if they're, you know, it's like an invasion of privacy, but that doesn't apply if you're a business entity. So you can get as many junk mail calls and voicemail calls as you could imagine. And this year, I probably get, every weekday, I probably get 7 or 8 new junk calls, and they're all just garbage. They leave me voicemails too. And I can't block the numbers. I block the number, they come back with a different number. It's just a little frustrating. Anyway, we're about to tidy these legs up. Someone was asking in the chat if and I think this is what they were saying. If not, I apologize. I think they're asking which one's superior, the L series or the M series. And from a technical perspective, there's not really one that's more superior to the other, except for once you get into the higher L's, which are the multi-format ones that they didn't work on or didn't make for the M series. Other than that, like the L20L2 and the 20M2, I'd still consider, personally, I'd consider either one of those to be fine. I do think that the M series is a lot more serviceable. So if you have an issue, there's a lot more documentation on how to fix it with that CRT as opposed to the L series, which is what we're working on right now, is an M series. So I particularly wouldn't say, I would only say that it's superior because it has a little bit more serviceability, and it also has the extra component / RGB input, which you can add with the option slot on the L series, so it's not like it's a big deal, but it is built in. But I don't know if you guys pay attention to Shank on Twitter. He's made so many different custom cards that are the BKM 129X cards, which is the card that goes in the L series PVMs. He's made so many replacement custom cards for doing things like having, goodness, there was a Game Boy Advance one, there's a Wii one, and all kinds of crazy stuff. So there's a lot of fun things you can do with those replacement cards, especially the fact that there's an open source hack to them. You can really get in there if you're creative and able to do what you want on those things. All right, let's take a second. I'm just reviewing my work to make sure I did everything correctly. Legs on those look a little long, but I don't think that's going to be any kind of an issue. It's not like they're hugely long. I like the solder joints, so I'm going to roll with it on those 3. We will mark those off our list. Grab a pen. So we've got 204 done, 207 and 208. And 206 is over here in this area, right in here. And That's where we're gonna go to next. This zone, probably what we'll do next. So you can't really, it's hard to go down the list and keep the numbers going, because sometimes you'll get into them and they'll be sporadically in areas. But if you do it according to blocks and then check off, you'll have all of them filled by the end of the list, or the end of the job. Sorry. All right, let's move on. So in this quadrant up here by this heatsink, we're going to have capacitors 522, 507, 595, and 206. Those are our 4 that we're going to be changing out next. And right there in the center of the screen. So I need to get I like to start with the inside ones first, 595 and 507. That's a 50 volt 220 capacitor, which should be right here. And then we need to get 507, 25 volt 100, right? 25 volt 100. Get a nice good 25 volt 100. This is a good one here. We have 105 degree Rubicon. We can sneak in there, so we'll get that placed in that happy little hole down there. There we go. Lovely. Okay, I sure do hope everybody's doing wonderful today and enjoying the calm, soothing sounds of traditional jazz as we replace these capacitors on this lovely set. So we've got our bottom capacitors in there. The next one's 522, which is a very big capacitor we have. This, we're going to upgrade from 16 volts to 25. And then we've got 207 or 206, which is the 25 volt 100. We need another one of those to go above our capacitor right here. So we'll go ahead and insert this one, the 206, and get the legs pushed up against there. And now all that's good. And I'm gonna get these 3 set, and then I'll come in and I'll install the big one to finish. Thank you, Belmont. I appreciate it. Yeah, we're gonna get in here and now we're gonna solder these 3 capacitors up into place. And again, these ones are, of course, directly related to the geometry. And let's get a good spot so you can see it. These are related to geometry specifically. So there's some times where if you have problems on your screen, it could be these exact capacitors, these 4 in this block, will cause specific issues. And as I explained earlier, what I'm doing now is I'm going to tack into place these legs. Then I can come back, clean them up afterwards. Or trim those legs and then reflow the solder. Okay. Alright, so I'm just going to begin here with the snips. Snip these legs. All out of the way. And then we're ready to come back. Just remember to get those legs that have no solder on them first. But then you come back after you do that one and touch up the solder on the leg that was your original anchor. Come over here and get the C595. There we go. And if you missed our discussion yesterday about soldering, I did mention that I'm using a rosin core solder. So that's what all that smoke is coming out is. It's basically the evaporating rosin. And since it's rosin core, it's got, flux basically in the middle of the core. So as it heats, the flux comes out, hits the board, and that's what you see. It's not actually like lead or anything that's evaporating. It's flux fumes from the rosin core on this. Really nice solder, and that's why you see that residue left over that we'll need to clean up once we're finished. So let's flip this over. We're ready. Hopefully ready. See, this one got a little bent, so we'll fix it. We'll try to straighten that out a little bit, but now we can install the big fatty 522. Take a look at this big fat capacitor, install it too, and we will. Which end is that? We need to push the negative end up a little bit closer. This. There we go. Get that one trimmed up and fixed up. And get this tacked into place. Edge. I think we're doing much better than our pace for yesterday, and that is a good thing. It took a long time yesterday to kind of get rolling through those two boards, which is fine. But once you get in your groove, to get solder in, then you get in a roll, and you just. It's much nicer actually to have more capacitors to change than on those other boards where you're pretty much only changing a couple. Like the neck board only had 2 and 8 on the power supply. And if we look here, we've already changed and installed 1, 2, 3, 7. So we've already installed 7 and we're only 25 minutes into the stream. So that's really a much better pace. So just going to do, again, a quality control check on all the capacitors we've gone through so far. We did change out 206 over here with a 25 volt 100. That's correct. And then it was 507 with a 25 volt 100, which is right under there. 507, correct. Then we had 522, which is written over here, done. That's the big fatty boom boom. And then the 220 50 volt, where is it? Right down here, 595. That's all the way at the bottom of the list. But there we go. 7 down, 21 to go, folks. So hang in there with me. Or hey, if you're like chilling at the office, doing yard work, I don't know, anything, enjoying your life, just relax and have a cozy little solder session for your background entertainment. And here we go. We're going to move on to, could either move on to the inside and go this direction, or we can go around this direction to our chip. I'll say that it's easier to go around this side, so let's just finish up this section, and then we may have to climax over here with this zone and back up here. So it's like a whole loop. We'll go around the flyback and then come back up, and we'll go around to this side. So if we get done with these, our next one over here is next to this connection, C596 down there, right here. So we need to get C596, that's a 25 volt 100 capacitor. So we'll insert it. And I know it's out on an island almost on its own, but why don't we go ahead and stick in these two right here. Now this is an interesting thing. So since there was the problem with these two capacitors that I showed you, Sony actually recommends you upgrade these parts and change them out from what you have. Now this one, I have differing opinions whether we need to go with a 2.2 microfarad or 160, but really it doesn't matter. So we're gonna go by this guide. Again, this has updated parts in it, so that's what's written out here to the side. That's beyond, if you go look at the Sony manual that's printed, it's going to show you these standard ones that come on the board. But like, we need to change this 572, which is one of the bad ones, from that 4.7 160 to a 10 UF 250. And then if we look down here, it was a 160 UF, but it's recommended that we change it to a 2.2. So we're going to go ahead and do it and just see how that all works out. I've done this before, and I just can't, it's been a while since I've actually done the upgrade parts. You can replace them with the parts that are in the board, and most of the time you'll have a normal, good experience, because you're replacing it still with new parts and it's following the spec sheets. But this one is a little bit of an upgrade kit. Now if I wanted to show you, look at the size difference. This is a Nishikon. This is a Nishikon, and this is, I don't know who makes this, I can't remember, but either way, look at the size difference in these two capacitors. This one is the one on the right hand side is the new capacitor, and this one's the old capacitor that we've removed. Just look at the size difference. So we're gonna go with that for C584. So that's on the outside of our heatsink. And the one that goes on the inside of the heatsink is going to be also a capacitor upgrade. As I said, 250 volt 10 microfarads. So here we've got a nice one, and we'll go with it. This one's obviously bigger. Now since we have a larger, whoops, sliding on me, a larger area over here, we can just slide that down in there. Fits nicely, just like that, and take advantage of that large space and install a nice big cap. Flip her over, and we're gonna tack in 3 more of these things. There we go. Got my soldering iron at 750 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's what I keep it at in most jobs. Just trying to tack those legs in. Come in here and straighten them all out. Get them all ready. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate the super chat. Getting things kicked off today with the super chats. Tony Escobar, love watching this work. Incredibly elegant. Well, thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. That's the one thing I really do like about, well, not one thing. That's one of the many things that's enjoyable about soldering and doing this kind of work. You're not under pressure most of the time to, you know, be in a big rush, because this kind of craftsmanship and work, and it really requires a good attention to detail. So, you know, if this is something that you're considering to do for a hobby, or you do right now for a hobby, or even part-time, maybe for, I don't know, make some extra money, whatever the case may be, don't rush yourself. And just remember that someday, if you do this long enough, for example, myself, I've been doing this kind of work pretty regularly for 5 or 6 years. You start to consider what's going to happen if down the road someone else looks inside and sees my work. Are they going to say, my goodness, you know, you've had a terrible person look at this before? And I didn't really want that to happen. I've been inside plenty of devices where I've seen bad workmanship and like people leaving all kinds of messes inside, and, you know, burning things. Heck, I've even seen people use the wrong types of solder, where they'll use solder intended for plumbing. And you come back and you look at their work, and the PCB has completely corroded because it's the wrong type of solder to use. And it was, you know, just ruining things. And it's something that has been a problem for years. I mean, Voltar has highlighted this forever, because devices like this, you don't have to, a lot of people don't have to show the inside and actually what they're doing. So there's a lot of people that don't want to take the time to do the best that they can, and then, or they get rushed for time, and they don't want to take, again, the extra steps to do the proper cleaning. And then or they take shortcuts, or, you know, get happy with things like glue. And then it's trouble for the rest of us who are actually trying to do a good job, because then, you know, we kind of get lumped in a category with people who do poor work sometimes. So, but it's like any field, you know. Josh, this one asked if this one's mine or a client's. This particular one belongs to me as of right now, and that's why I'm doing like the upgraded kit, because I want to do a more recent one of these. It's been, like I said, a while since I've actually done this upgrade kit, and I want to see how it works. I want to do some testing, but eventually I will sell this one. And the main reason is, and it will be sold, I mean, I only sell, really, to be honest with you guys, I only sell on like Patreon mostly. Like, it's like people can just send me a message if they're looking for something, and I try to find them. But I'll list this on there, offer it to a couple people, and see if they want it. Because I've got a 14M2 that's actually being delivered this afternoon. Hopefully it will make it and not be destroyed. But because I've gone from having a run of having a lot of them arrive in good condition, but lately I've had 2 or 3 that have just shown up broken. So hopefully that won't happen. But you never know. It was UPS. There's a good chance it won't survive. But that way I can clear out room. I needed to clear shelf space to bring in that 14M2. So I'll get this M2U done, and see what we'll do with it. I'd like to sit and take some extra time and catch up with Keith Rainey again and run through like the color stuff, possibly on this chassis and this monitor. So that would be a lot of fun. to actually work through that. So let's go in now and kind of check off what we've done. I don't know that, let's see, we've done 584, 572, and then 596. So we can go now to the next zone, which is right next to that. There's actually, this is the way I like to work through these boards, because it's, you can work through it step by step. Now we're over here in this area. There's two under this finger and one over here. Hello, Felipe. Thank you for joining this morning. So we've got C585 over here, 588 and 590 over here. Now let's see, one of these is an upgrade part also. That is this 590 right here. We're going from a 2.2 microfarad just up to a 100 volt version. So let's slip that one in. That's 590. So that's right here. 590. And then 588 is just a 10 microfarad 50 volt, which we've already replaced a few of. And we should be able to find one of those pretty easily right here. 50 volt 10, lovely red cap. That's 590. And get those legs pushed out a little more. And then 585 is a little bit of a bigger one. Which one is it? It is a... This is another one that is an upgrade part also. So we had a 250 volt 4.7 originally. And then we are moving up for a 10 microfarad 250 volt 585 right here. We're upgrading. Hey, super guys, CRT, how's it going, man? Happy Friday to you too. Thank you for the amazing super chat. Super Guy has one of the best CRT collections you'll see on the internet. So when you have a second, you should definitely go check out his channel and his really cool CRTs. Hey, 6Vibe, thanks for joining. I'm looking forward to working on a couple CRTs, just looking at some really cool ones that I think are rare that he has, and he's always nice enough to offer them to send to me. He sent me the two smallest ones I've covered, which were very much liked on the channel, so I thoroughly enjoy having the opportunity of working with very cool people and collectors like that want to let me take a look at their stuff. Alright, so we're going with our next block of 3, 588, 590, and 585. Two of these are the upgrade parts, as I spoke about earlier. Just go in here and tack these legs in. First off, and once they're set, we'll get in here and there we go. Straighten out those negative leads on the caps. Those ones are a little bit caught under there. So, as we've proven, even though, so this monitor ran for, I think, 2 to 3 hours yesterday. It didn't have a single issue, but it's never been serviced. It's from 2001. But it's never been serviced, and we've already found a couple of capacitors that were bad in it, that were in pretty crucial areas. So what that tells me is that there's a lot of times where nobody would really know. There's a lot of things that, when you own one of these, if you don't, like, you could work perfectly or just have some tiny little issue that maybe you don't even notice, and could be a bad capacitor. Very possible. Or it could show no symptoms at all and have a couple of bad caps and still function pretty well. But eventually you'd figure that enough caps will fail that a direct issue will occur. And that's usually when I get a call. But the wise would go in and arrange to either do what I'm doing now or have this done to their CRT. That way, you know, it can give you some peace of mind to know that these crucial caps are all fresh. Because these capacitors, they should be fine for 10 to 15 years, no matter really the usage. Hey, thanks, Belmont. I appreciate the $5 super chat. It's awesome. Thank you, man. I really appreciate you being here at all the streams. It's been a lot of fun. I know I've been like crazy on the schedule of the streams, but I've been trying to let other people that normally can't catch them, I've been, you know, as my schedule allows, trying to branch out so everybody can kind of catch a stream if they don't normally get to, depending on where they are in the world, because I know a lot of people view from all over the place. All right, so here we go. We're going to QC check what we've just changed out. So I'll zoom you down here and we can look at it together. We've got this capacitor right here, 585, the upgraded cap. So we can check that one off our list. We can check off these two, 588 and 590, because we've got the 50 volt 10 on the 590. Or I'm sorry, 590 is the outside one, or the inside one. That's the upgrade part. Yep, we got them right. Okay, let's mark those off. Hey, Godfather. Nick, good to see you too. Now we can move on to our whole next block and section. And as you go through here and you're checking stuff, it's a good idea to just verify that all these components are in good health visibly. So, for example, I'll go in here and check just to make sure that none of these, see how these resistor legs, they do stand up. I don't want them to like touch any metal or be touching another component and possibly somehow short. Concrete season for Belmont. And we'll get off a little bit topic here as I go in and I move on to our next section. Belmont, you're in the concrete business. This may surprise you. I actually have a degree in concrete. That's the specialty that my engineering degree was in, just concrete industry management. And I spent, before I was in insurance, I spent the years working in ready mix plants all over the place, man. I worked for a company called BASF Chemicals, which is a pretty big company, and I was a sales representative, and I got to go to I actually lived in Portland, Oregon. Okay, flat work, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so I was add mix, like a chemical that would be inserted into the concrete that would make it do something pretty exotic. Increase the strength, make it easier to finish, things like that. I was with, we would come up with a lot of the chemical compounds and admixtures. Not me personally. This was amazing, full-on lab people. But we would go. I worked on bridges out in the West. I worked on one of the biggest jobs I ever worked on was on the Columbia River in between it was on the border of the Washington State and Oregon, because I lived in Portland at the time, and they were pouring thousands of yards of concrete at a dam, and it was a spillway they were creating, and it was like a $50 million, it probably turned out to be $100 million job when it was done, to make a spillway for the salmon, just the salmon to swim through, because they were getting chopped up in the turbines of the dam, and they couldn't have that. So they had a huge project, and they were pouring concrete that was outside. They mixed the concrete on site, and then we had a chemical that would hold it together so it wouldn't separate underwater. So it would become watertight. It would still be liquid, but it would become watertight. And the reason it was watertight is you could actually place that concrete underwater. It was a special, expensive concrete. And you could place this concrete underwater. And when you did, it wouldn't wash out. No water would get into it and make it in worse shape. So they had underwater divers with the old school airline and like metal helmets, real old school divers. They were in there for 8-hour shifts underwater placing concrete. We're going over in this area. Sorry for that tangent for a second. I just thought that I would give you a little story time. We got Cap 534, which is a 250-22. It's a big one. 534. 250 volt 22. Get those legs pushed down. And then we're going to go ahead and hit up these three over here. 509 is that's the big one. 506 is the one we're looking for. 50 volt 0.47. That's what we got right here. And slip that down in there. So his legs got a little twisted. And now we're ready for the big one. Big man here. 100 volt, 47 microfarad. But I'll be honest with you, working in concrete, wow, that was tough. A lot of the jobs were in the middle of the night. And hours away, and lots of hours I spent when I had that job. It was one of the jobs, you don't get paid hourly, of course, because you're a salaried employee. But you would spend 70 hours a week with road time, because Oregon is a big state. We service the vast majority of it. You'd have jobs that were 4 or 5 hours away from each other within the state pretty easily, sometimes even further. All right, this is our block of 4 caps. Everything's in the correct direction. Give it the flip and we'll solder it. Oh my goodness. Hey, Ann Cat. And hey, Stan, welcome back. That's pretty amazing. So he's watching, or she, I'm not sure. They're watching it on a Philips CRT? That's awesome. Philips CRTs. I do have one Philips Magnavox CRT up in my garage. It's a flat screen, one of those later models. I haven't got to use it yet, but I'm excited to. I like those little things. Call me crazy, but again, 13-inch CRTs. I love the 13-inch CRT. It's like my dirty secret of what I like to collect are 13-inch CRTs. everyone got a little hot on me. 13 inch is just the perfect size because you don't really have any trouble moving them on your own. So it gets like 20 inches and stuff. I mean, you can move a 20 inch on your own, but it just starts to get, as you get old, it gets old moving big CRTs. The older you get, it gets very old and unfun. Young man's game, moving those big 27 and 34, 32 and 36 inch tubes. Goodness. Yeah, actually, going back while I'm tacking in these 4 capacitors, going back to concrete, I worked there for a little while, and then I finally, I'll be honest with you, office politics, it was funny. That's what actually got me kind of outed at that job. I didn't know how to really play the political game. This was when I was fresh out of college. That was my first job. And I know it may sound goofy to some people, but a large company, there's a lot of politics going on. So eventually I got blamed for some really weird stuff. Just like other people's ineptitude with their projects. And since I was basically the new guy, they eventually asked me to basically resign after a couple of years. And instead, I just went, I quickly found another job, and I moved back to Tennessee, where I had grown up for my teenage years. And when I took another job, but that was with a company called Old Castle. And what we made there was, it was called a precast structure business. So we would make things at our factory, mix our own concrete, and then we would produce items to order and then ship them out. People would come pick them up. So it wasn't like we would go to different jobs. It was all a factory environment, industry environment, and then things were shipped or picked up, taken other places. I also made a lot of concrete pipe. I was in charge of quality control. That was my when I took that job, so I went from the sales position at BASF, and then I took the job with Old Castle, and this was right prior to the first like economic crash of 2008-9, the housing crash and everything. I mean, things were looking bad right then. So right after I took that job, I had like half a dozen people working under me in the quality control department. And by the time I was let go, because eventually, a couple years down the road, I got let go. Eventually, just because of cutbacks. Like the factory went from having 500 employees to like 40 during this time period. And this was after I had to actually take a mandatory like 25% pay cut also. So it was terrible. It was a bad time to be in the business. And honestly, that's one of the reasons I got into insurance at that time, was because the concrete business was in such dire straits. So we're going to change out these two. Hey, we got somebody else. I'm sorry, I don't know what your name is, but we do have another visitor from China. That's awesome. Thank you. We'll do what we can to try to maintain these machines. All right, so we're looking at 512 and 592, but we were talking about quality control, so let me just go ahead and do my quality control check, where I've got my capacitors here and here, and then here and here, and we're all good on 509, 513, should be a 50 volt 10. We're good there. 509 is the big one. 506 is a 50 volt 0.47. That's correct. And then this one is the 534, the big one too. All good. We're getting there. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks like we have about 11 capacitors to go. There's still some times where I go back and think what life would have been like if I'd have stayed in the concrete business, but it just wasn't meant to be, or at least not for now. I do, however, remember a lot of things from that time period and that phase of my life. It's like weird phases where I was in certain industries for 10 years and then got spit out to other things. The life of an American worker. All right, 512 under here is a 50 volt 0.47. And got one of those right here. And then 592 is a 250 volt 4.7. So that should be right here. That's a little bit of an upgrade. That was a 160 volt 250 volt. Will be a little bit of an upgrade, which is fine. Never wrong. I mean, it's never a problem really to go up on voltage with components. It's not generally making a difference as far as performance. It's just a little bit, maybe a little bit more wear resistant. Here we go. Hey, Steven. Good to see you today. Steven is a long-time watcher, follower, supporter of the channel. It's always nice to see people who've been hanging around and following the work for years. Thank you, Steven. And it looks like one of the jazz tunes, man. It's got some words on it. Sorry, I didn't screen all the music. Let's skip that one. Go to the next tune. I just, was going for a certain vibe, so I checked out about the first 15 seconds of each one of these songs before I came on live, and I thought people kind of enjoyed the vibe of the stream yesterday, and I thought, why not continue on with it? There's a lot of things that feel high-strung and stressful. Why not come here and just relax and, have it a place to chill out? Not have to worry about things, just enjoy the ambiance. Because after this, I'll have to be getting ready. After I get done with all this stuff, I'll have to start getting my house ready for the holiday Sunday. I'm getting all my food and did all my landscaping already for the season, thankfully. That all went well. But now I got inside work to do. And answer a quick message here from the missus. Alright, let's move on now. We've got those two done. Right here, 592, 512 over here. Right down in this area. Those are good. So we can mark those off our list. 512. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty band here. We get to swing around this side of our chassis, and now we're gonna get into this zone and then finish up over in this zone. So we're getting there, the home stretch. I mean, we've only got 8 or 9 capacitors to go. Next up, let's get this one down here. 541. And then we've got some trouble ones to get to, so let's do 529, 523, and 541. 541 is a 50 volt 4.7. So we'll get that one down in there. Get it pushed up. Hey, Jeff Manager, thank you for the $5 super chat. I appreciate it a lot. And says he's enjoying the stream. Got the vibe right. Thank you. Yeah, I think we finally found our good vibes on the streams. I've been trying to find out, you know, what would be a good, consistent flavor for these streams, and it seems like this will do well. This type of a vibe. So we're looking at 523 and 529, and those are, from what I'm seeing, those are both 50 volt 1 microfarad. So we've got 2 of those here, and again, according to the notes, one of these 529, which is the one back here by this transformer and this big capacitor right in between there, that's an upgrade. We're going to do an upgrade part. It used to be a 0.47 microfarad capacitor. Now this is the one where, as you can tell, my fat fingers really have a hard time getting that down in there. And the 1 or 2 times that it comes in handy to have pliers or even just some whoop. That's the tricky part about the tweezers, is they're a little bit trickier to use. But we'll try to get, I'm going to move this a little bit out of the stream. I think I can get my fingers down there actually this time. Yeah. Oh yeah. So get that push down in there. Push those aside. And we will solder in after we get this other 50 volt 1 microfarad cap over on this end, which is 523. This will be a nice little section of 3. Those 3 red capacitors right there. Flip this over. And side a little bit. And you're looking right here are our capacitor legs. So we'll get our soldering iron out. Tack that leg into place. Sometimes I like to straighten the legs out, so I'll put a little bit more heat back on that for a second. Straighten that leg out. And then finally, tacking this one down here. There we go. Straighten out that leg. That leg. I'm going to come back over here and put some heat on this leg and try to get it straightened out some. There we go. Yeah, so I'm excited to see. I mean, there's a lot of changes in the cap kit as far as like upgrade parts, or suggested changes from Sony bulletins and Save on Pat. So it's going to be an interesting thing to see all this happen. Of course, then if there's an issue, I'm going to go back and like scratch my head as to what could be causing it, and then Sometimes I get concerned making so many changes. If something happens, then what do you recommend? You don't recommend making the changes. Usually you go back to just the standard. But let's hope. I've got faith that everything's going to be good. The one thing you got to do though is take your time again on this part of the board, because there's so many components. And just a single cap can have numerous traces. There's that one, there's that one. I know there's one more 529 over here by the transformer. There we go. All right, these are moving along nicely. About an hour in, and we have been just moving very nicely as far as our pacing. And those are our 3 capacitors. Everything looks good. 541, 50 volt, 4.7, and those are the 2 50 volt ones. So we can go in here off our lists. 523, 529, and 541. That leaves 586, and then the 5 other capacitors that are additions. And these 5 capacitors I've added are all, I believe those are all in this area. Yeah, around the heatsink, curves in this area, there. So there's 5 more in here that I normally haven't had as part of my kit before. These are ones that I've hijacked from Save on Pat's cap kit list. So we'll see just how that all goes. We've got a 50 volt 100. What is this one? 16 volt 1000. Looks like I might be short one capacitor. Where is it? 586, 25 volt. No, there it is. Okay. All right, we're good. So we're gonna go in here now. We're gonna get this one next to the heatsink over here. This is a 50 volt 100, and we are going to a 105 degree high quality replacement on this one. And most, I mean really every one, but this one specifically was an 85 degree capacitor. We're going to upgrade that since it's next to that heatsink, hopefully give it a little bit more durability. Then we can move down here and hit up 574, which, is that right? It's not 574. Have to check the backside. Some of these aren't marked correctly. 570, which is our bigger 16 volt 1000 microfarad capacitor. Get that one sit down in there. Another high quality replacement. And then we'll have these 3 left. So that's, we got one more in between there that we'll sneak in here. It's this one right here. I'm not sure what the number is. It's hard to see from that side. Looks like 564 is the number. 564 right in there. Just a 50 volt 10. And looks like we're moving from red to black. But that's okay. Still another good high quality replacement. Same specifications. And get that guy in there. Just different color, different brand. So now, straighten this out. Come back in here and get to soldering. Take a sip off my H2O. So you gotta keep hydrated, you know? Gotta keep your hydration levels up so you can maintain that high level of concentration. High level of concentration needed to be a peak performer, no matter the task. And get that leg straightened out. These other two negative ends. Those, look at this, straightened out. Finally tack in this side. There we go. Now oh, yes. Getting the Barry White vibes in here now. Trim these legs up, man. It is so nice to be this close to having these finished. I can't believe we're about to be done. Let's hope that everything's right. Now see this one I'm about to solder, it connects to a couple of, this trace connects to a couple different places. So you gotta be mindful of that. And that's why I did the other leg first, to tack down, so. .564 now. That's the one that I showed yesterday on stream, that the leg of the component is just right in the middle of all these pieces. That one had capacitors and surface mount resistors all around it. Those little tiny ones. Alright, there are 3. Okay, Andy asked a good question. There's people have different opinions on caps, which caps to use. Do you actually worry about your replacement caps? And the truth is, pretty much all there's like 15 brands of high quality capacitor companies. There's not just one, you know? So I'm less concerned with sticking with a brand as trying to get the capacitor right and make sure that it's a good high quality capacitor. And that's why you'll see, I mean, these are sometimes the cheapest capacitors, and that's Worth Electronics. They are really top quality. They perform well. They stand out being red, but other than that, I love these capacitors. And those are the cheapest ones I use. Anything else other than that you've noticed is, you know, the black ones are generally Rubicon, Nishikon, and then there's like I can't remember what IC stands for, but Intro Chemicon or something like that. Any brand that's sold on like Mauser or DigiKey, honestly, those are usually really good brands. The ones you want to stay away from is eBay, because they sell like Chong X and these just really poor quality capacitors. We got 586, right? So let's first off check off the list. I got the 50 volt 100 of 579, 570, and 564. 570, 579, 564. Good. That leaves a big one, and then the other two are simply 50 volt 10 microfarads. So here's another one that's on the cheaper end. It's probably about the same price as Worth, and it's black, but it's also a great capacitor. That's Lelon. So don't get too carried away with thinking there's a big difference in the brands, because the biggest issue that made me really, get away from being so married to one brand or two brands of capacitors was the parts shortages that we had been experiencing the last 2+ years. I'm going to install these and then we'll come back and install the very last cap by itself. But these are C581 and 577. They're both 50 volt 10. But the parts shortages of the last couple of years have made it really difficult to just be married to Nichicon and Rubicon caps, because some of those would go out of stock on certain values and wouldn't be restocked for, goodness, some of them listed like till now. So now we're getting stock 2023, but back when it was 2021 and you said, man, I just want to get this one cap and it says it won't be ready till 2023. Well, you can tell that you can't just rely on waiting for years to be able to just waiting for production to come back just to get a specific brand. That would be kind of silly. So that's what made me branch off more and more and look at data sheets, reputations. They're all, you're not going to get a deal selling on Mauser usually unless you have, or DigiKey, unless you have met some pretty high standards as far as business capabilities. So I tend to trust the fact that they're all being sold on that website too, as another confirmation that these parts are quality. All right. This one's another one that's right in the danger zone, I'd call it. It's like so many little parts. And I like to get, a uniform looking solder joint in there, which I'm not always capable of doing. Okay. 2 more down. Yeah, this is actually a medical PVM. So people are talking in the chat about how somebody's actually seen one still in use in the medical facility. That's interesting. The last time I saw a CRT or PVM attached to a device, it was in a vet hospital, like smaller vet clinic for dogs and cats, and that was 3 or 4 years ago. Last cap on the kit is a 25 volt 1000 microfarad capacitor here, 586. So check off 577, 581, leaves 586 on the list. I'll check it off because there's no other caps in the kit. Close that guy. And we will tack in our cap here. Get this one done right, and then we can go in and start cleaning. Ooh, that's probably why I should wear safety glasses. That leg of that capacitor came flying back at me. Let's tack in and finish cleaning up C586 here. There we go. Beautiful. All right. So it took roughly an hour and 20 minutes on stream here to install this capacitor kit on this A board. And that's all in this area. Right in the center of the screen now. So I'm just going to go through and make sure that all these capacitors are pointing the right direction. Just another check. Even if you check things 2 or 3 times, it's never a bad thing. You would be so much better off to catch a mistake you've done prior to turning it on And it's just a great thing to get in the habit of. Everything's looking really good here. Really good. Okay. Also check those resistors, as I'd mentioned, other components. Make sure they're not sticking down against something. You can use these ESD tools and straighten those things up. And do a quality check on just whatever you want. I mean, this is a perfect time to look at things and make sure that nothing looks out of place or incorrect. Good time to make sure all your cards are seated. Everything looks good. Clusters even look fine. Crystals are good. I just like to have these adductors. Make sure they're not touching anything. Want to make sure you clear up the areas around your connections where you're going to have to plug in things when we reassemble. And everything's looking really good. Excellent. Okay. I'm very happy with the way things look. And now, hey, Tony's a surgeon. Tony Escobar said he's a surgeon and he got his first CRT from his office. That's awesome. It was mounted on the wall at my office. You got the retro gaming bug during the COVID break lockdown. The hospital let you take it. That's the greatest. That's such a like a lottery thing. Like you learn about retro gaming and you're like, oh my gosh, there's actually like one of the best CRTs in the world right there. And I never really thought about it till now. Here we go. Now we're going to get in and we're going to clean this up, and then we're going to put the tray back on it. A little plastic tray. And I clean this chassis usually vertically, so this should work out for a good view, but I need to get some stuff and put it under there. I'm putting a piece of cardboard under this just so it'll catch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually spray isopropyl alcohol in the back of here and clean around each post that we've serviced and brush, and then that can all go down here. But I should also have a couple of paper towels. Let me grab those real quick. All right, got our cleaning materials prepared here. And we're ready to get to cleaning. Just going to rearrange some things I shouldn't need anymore, so we'll get them out of the way. Things like snips. One of those tools we won't need anymore, because now we're just on the cleaning phase. So let's get a nice spot there to catch a lot of that. And we will get to work. Now what I also like to do is I like to use this. I'll have some Q-tips over here, but I like to use this little dish. And then I will spray that isopropyl into this container. And then I get to use my secret brush to scrub around these components. So, get one more thing out of the way. That's this secret little brush here. A crappy old Minions kids brush. ESD safe, all plastic. Just dip that guy right in that isopropyl alcohol, and we're going to start up here from the top end and work our way down. Hopefully we don't have to worry about this end that we didn't recap at all, but just like the other boards, we're going to run into leftover residue from Sony and the factory that's going to get sticky and oozy from us cleaning our work. So the trick is to come down here and wipe off the see if, as I wipe this off down here, this spot will turn more and more yellow. You don't want to just take and dip it right back in here. You're going to contaminate all the alcohol in there, and then like you'll just be rubbing yellowed, nasty alcohol with flux in it just back and forth on the board that you just cleaned, because each time that yellow will come off there more and more. So be mindful of that. It's another time to really check out the integrity of the work we just completed. Like, how does this solder look? How do these points that we soldered, how do they look? I just broke my own rule there. But you don't have to worry about it as much as after you start getting the areas cleaned. You can just go straight back into it, kind of, once you get all that flux off. But it's just a good way to compare what you've actually done to like the soldering points right next to it. I like to try to make my work where it's like, well, you can tell somebody's been here because like the solder's shiny. It's shinier than the dull solder that the old solder. You can tell somebody's been here, but that's all I want you to do. I don't want you to say, oh, I can tell somebody's been here because that looks like trash, like they've reworked it and it just doesn't look good. I'd rather it to be like, did somebody work here before, work on this? Yes, okay, probably, because it looks like these parts have been changed. And as you can see down here, we're also getting just some runoff on the board where the alcohol's running down the board, and it's just taking a lot of this flux with it right off the board down to the base. And what that's going to do is leave a sticky trail on this board, and that's why you get stuck cleaning basically the whole board. But these are some of the jobs that nobody really wants to concentrate on, or the stuff where you gotta clean, you know? But take pride in your work. Make it look wonderful. Nothing, there's really not too many things. There are things that are better, but not too much feels better than the accomplishment of finishing a job like this, knowing you've done it right, and knowing that it'll be good for a long time. You don't have to worry about coming back in here and doing this again. Just gonna continue on cleaning, because along this edge there's a lot of built up solder from the factory. I want to get the majority of that off with this smaller brush. Here's some caps in this zone that we installed. See that coming off there? That you're not going to hurt the boards by getting this alcohol on it, so no worries there. There we go. There used to be a time when people actually took a good, were concerned with how their products performed and like how they lasted, but fortunately nowadays companies are more concerned with getting you to throw out the device they just sold you so you can buy the next one. They don't really want you to have things that last a long time, so we lose in that process. We lose a lot of what made these devices so great to begin with, and that was the fact that they were hearty and strong devices that were built well, that weren't going to fall apart and weren't designed to fall apart like planned obsolescence or anything like that, which is just a scourge on the economy as a whole. And as we try to, you know, get things more it's stymies technological breakthrough creativity, I feel like. Okay, enough ranting. Let's go ahead now, and I'm going to do a little dab here like that, and then I'll show you what we have left here. We've got, look at all that came off there, all that nasty sticky flux, and there's still some more on this board. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move up to a little bit bigger of a brush. So we've taken the small brush, kind of gotten all the big stuff off the way. Using a new cleaner brush that's a little bit bigger. I can go through here and do broader strokes, kind of, but also it's meant to more do a secondary cleanup than the primary one. Oh, there we go. Tipsy-turvy. Tipsy-turvy. So keep doing that for a little bit. And then I need to like dry it a little bit. Now, if you go in here, let me show you what happens. If you take your air blower right now and you blow dry this clean, you're going to end up with this amazing like mess. Now let me show you what I mean. I'm just going to do it so you can see it. But okay, I apologize for that loud, obnoxious noise there for a second, but I wanted to show you, you could see how it looks clean at 1 second, but then when you wipe it all off, you get this white, powdery dust that's left over from the evaporated. You can see it right here. This is a good contrast about how this is the untouched portion of the board where we didn't do any repairs and didn't really clean. Over here we have all kinds of alcohol and other residues. And so what I like to do is go back here with a brush. And first I'll brush off with this soft brush and try to brush off some of that. And you see how that, you know, basically if you keep doing that, that'll come off and clean that board up even more. And if you want, sometimes you get into a board that's real dirty, you may need to clean it up a little more. There's other brushes you can use. I have like this crazy brush right here, which again is an ESD safe brush. It's wood and just hair, and you can gently do this because you don't, I mean, you don't want to, hopefully you don't have a loose part on the board, but because that would be pretty devastating. But it should be hardy enough. The board should be able to withstand what I'm doing, and it does. I mean, I've done this dozens and dozens of times, but this is a good way to knock off that loose dust and really make this board shine. Just it's usually what I do is do that, and then you come back after you hit it with that, all that, you can come back, usually dry it off or blow it off again. And then nothing, you see nothing came back. There's a little bit of dust over in this area. But you could do that. And there we go. Looks amazing. So that's how I try to be most efficient. I don't like to waste a bunch of the alcohol, even though it's cheap, you know. I want to try to not create as much waste as I can, just because it's costly to manage and buy more stuff. So that's what we'll do. I'll take a second to also kind of wipe off the top area again, just around the edges and things on this board. Kind of zoom out here for a second and get the trash out of the way. And we'll just kind of dust everything off again. And as we're doing that, it's another chance to just check things, make sure things look right. Nothing looks out of place, strange, or anything. Everything looks ready to get back together. I have a party here in a second. Reunite this chassis with the rest of its boards in the tube. And it should be good. Give it one last blow. And there we go. Got my screws in this. I do need a couple of these screws from the screw kit. So we'll get those screws installed. Get them ready. Get this. Don't need this brush anymore. Get these out of the way. Now we can get ready to set things back together. First off, we're going to put the chassis back in there. I do see maybe a couple spots in here just to make sure that it's nothing besides just, again, residue. See? You could sit here and look for hours and find dirty stuff on a board like this and just want to re-clean it and re-clean it and re-clean it. But unless you have pretty much an ultrasonic cleaner or 10 hours dedicated to cleaning, then that's you got to stop somewhere. Can't just worry about it. You're not eating off the chassis. You're just getting it set up to work again. All right, everything's out of the way, and we got to reinstall 4 screws on this board. So we've got Phillips head screws. We need to do 3 along the board, and then 1 at the flyback. So we'll save the flyback for last. These are just to secure the board into here, like, so it doesn't shift around. Don't want to over tighten it, just tight enough to where you can feel that you can't physically screw it anymore. Don't over tighten this. This will split your board if you do. Gotta just get this last one over here on the side. It's a little trickier. It's under the card, but you can slip in there and do it like that. Okay, make sure that card's good. That card's still good. Inserted. The last screw goes in here at the flyback. So I'm going to get in this way, try to guide it in that way, and this one goes in here, down in that spot. Oh, it's a little trickier to get to. Definitely can't fit my fingers down there. We'll try this. Okay, get that one out of there. I don't really like to use that one in these tight spots because it's magnetic. It wants to stick to everything. Sometimes I just use it to start the screw. Okay, great. That's in. That's in, my friend. And so we can zoom out. And here we go. Now I'm gonna brush it off one more time while it's in here. Let's see some stuff. We're gonna make sure it's nice and clean. I'm ready to go. Rechecking everything. Looks good. Okay. Now we can reinstall this. This is our input board. Input board's pretty straightforward. 99 out of 100 times, this input board doesn't need anything more than just a little bit of a cleaning. Generally nothing that goes wrong with this unless it gets rusted or something. So first thing we want to do is connect these points right there. And we've got all these other connections we get out of the way. So this is going to come in, connect to there. These actually do connect to our board. So we've got this will connect to this card here. There. I believe this connects down here to this connection point. And then we can slip this on here. Get that in. And we have the whole chassis set up now so that we can turn around and install it in the tube behind us. So we'll set to the all camera and move my papers out of the way. Now what we're going to do is we're going to reinstall this chassis into our tube. So this is it. We'll turn around, do the exact opposite of what I did when this was coming off. So okay. The trickiest part's just getting in there, making sure that you give yourself enough room to connect everything. Be a little tricky sometimes because you don't want to be forceful. You want you don't want to rip cables. You might disconnect something at the front. Or to be too forceful. You know, you don't want to miss a connection. All right, we're getting there, I promise. Hello, pushing in a little further. Yes, yes. Should be able to push it all the way in there. So that sits against the there's lips or like a shelf in there, and it slides right in under the shelf once you get the board in there correctly. Make sure no cables are pinched. There we go for that. Got a couple of ground connections. And we'll go ahead and screw these ground plates, this ground plate and this other screw back in. So that and the ground plates there. We have one more screw, just one more, and then we can get things ready to test. We got two more things to connect, looks like. One of them we definitely don't want to forget, but I've heard nightmares of some people forgetting to do it. And that's connect the flyback. That would be a tragedy, wouldn't it? Alright. Just getting things set here. I turn this around to the other end. I'm going to clean this cap out a little bit. It's pretty nasty. This anode. So you got some dirt, some dust in it. And normally I would go in here and add some of this. Let me rearrange this. Yeah, sorry everybody. I know I'm just taking my time on this part. So if we look here at the camera turned around, we look at the anode cap specifically. Got a little bit of a issue with my tripod here. Okay, normally I would add some dielectric grease to this, but there's already a bunch up here. So I'm just gonna move it around. No point in me adding any extra. That's definitely plenty. Plenty. And then I'll just slip this cap in here, push the prongs together. If I can get them together, I don't know why I can do that one-handed, I guess. My goodness. There we go. Okay. Get that in there. Sure. Get it out of the way a little bit. And we have our high voltage to our neck board. connect. And then I can go around here and check and make sure that everything is connected. And I'll do that before I turn it on. Okay, I visually verified everything is connected as it should be. So, there's really only one thing to do. One thing left to do. Test our work. Just do that right there. Get that out of the way. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to test composite video just to start with. And I've got my cable here. And I've got a power cable here. And plug it up. Surge protector is turned off. There's no way any power is going into any devices yet. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to power into the monitor and the waveform vector monitor. And then that way we know our signal. Now this will show us that the signal coming through is good. So we know we're getting a signal. And if it's working properly, then it should show that signal obviously on our screen up top, as long as we're on input A. Oh goodness, hold on to your butts. We're about to do it. Okay, just last check. I want to make sure this is not turned on. We'll turn that on. I'm going to turn this light out. Turn this light out. Don't need that anymore. And now we'll get the camera set up a little lower. And I see that the Super Nintendo is turned on, which is good. Back this up maybe a little. Well, never mind. Can't really get that back up anymore. That's right. So first off, we're going to turn on the waveform monitor. And we're going to let it come online. And then I can... let's hear the startup moment. Maybe we will. Yeah, so I see that I've got the vector scope on just playback. So for example, it's not on vector scope mode, it's on playback mode. So you can see this is the 240p test suite in monochrome down here. And I guess we should go ahead and do it. Golly, this really is nerve-wracking. Let's see. You know what happened to my darn waveform monitor? The backlight went out on it on both these screens. So now I've definitely got to repair this unit too. All right, here we go. Make sure everything's set to like a standard level. Nothing's cranked all the way up. Shh. Oh, I don't know if you heard it. I hear the CRT coming online. I hear it. I believe. Ah, I believe. All the believers out there, we have We have success, looks like. Woo! Look at that screen, baby. There we go. We can turn the brightness down just a touch for you. Contrast too. But this is just part of the process. We basically have to let this thing run for a good half an hour before we can really get into it and adjust it. I mean, it's a good. So now that let me give you some tips now that it's back online and it's up and running. We don't want to really get into the adjustments just yet. We don't want to just jump in and start making adjustments because these caps are so fresh. This is their first time of being energized, you know? We finally got that first jolt in them. And now we need to give them some time to get used to that voltage, get some electricity flowed into them. So I like to let it run for an hour or so. And before I would even consider really making any adjustments. Sometimes I'll let it run for 6 to 8 hours before I make any adjustments. Just because I want to have those things broken in. This, so yeah, this is it. Let's get in here. And again, this is composite video. Now, why would I care about composite video? Huh? The funny thing is about these monitors. Hey, thanks, Jeff. Manager with another $5 for the win. I appreciate it. So we can take and check. Let's go to the SMPTE color bars here, which are these standard color bars. If I hit it again, it goes to 100% brightness. I'm sorry if the focus goes in and out here. I'll do a little bit of a different view. I'll back it up a sec. Or a touch too, because that seems to help. So what I actually want to do is I'm going to turn this over to the vector scope so it looks like this pattern, which then I can get in here and whoops, that's the wrong variable. So see, this is the vector scope down here that I'm enlarging right now. This right here. And I know it looks like a crazy hourglass, almost like a 3-part hourglass. That's what it should look like for the most part. That just proves that the signal coming out of the Super Nintendo is a good composite video signal. That's what you want it to look like. And then you have our waveform monitor down here, which is it's not set to the right size. I'll expand it a little bit, and we need to bring it up just a touch. It's that, and then we want to expand that so we can actually see it on the screen. Be something like that. And that just shows us a good pattern of step-down pattern of the colors on here. So this just looks, that's the only reason I'm showing you this is so that we verified that we have a pretty darn good, stable composite video signal. I have other ones like from a Genesis 2, and this thing will spin, and this doesn't look as good, and it's not a good composite signal. But why do I want that good composite signal? Well, I want to try a running the auto color calibration on the CRT real quick. So to do that, you need to inject good color bars like this. This is the pattern. And all you have to do is real simple. We're going to go in here, menu. And now there we go. We're going to go in here to preset. Oh, look, here's the preset adjustments where we can set something for that. Where is the actual... Interesting. I might have to ask Keith Rainey to come on. Because I thought you should just... When I did it in the L series, it was just... under, maybe it's under config. I doubt it. Let's see. Oh, Chroma setup. I'm sorry. So I was looking through all this stuff. Go to configuration, config. We're going to do chroma setup. Hit enter. Chroma, and we're going to go down here to auto adjust. We're going to hit enter. See what it says? It says auto adjust signal NTSC, which is what we have. Select bar signal, set position, and then set all the things to regular, and we can hit enter, and hopefully it'll do it. See how it says progress? Completed. So that's it. That's the auto chroma setup. So it's gone in there and just auto corrected the chroma coloring on the screen. Okay, that's all you have to do. But if you have bad color bars coming from a bad signal, this will say failed or aborted, and then you'll be out of luck. And that's it for like the basic standard little setting on there. Let's get out of this and show you just some stuff on the screen. I do have the brightness turned down a good bit and the contrast. And that is for the camera. So, oh, this is a good one. Super Castlevania is a good one to show you a lot of colors, a lot of different things on the screen. If it works, there we go. So, what do you think? It was a pretty good restoration. I mean, it did take 2 hours to do this board. So, I mean, yeah, 4 hours just to do this section. And that's not including the preparation work off screen. It's a great little project, I say, but it is it's like a full day if you go in and you do this, because now you're going to let this thing run, and then you'll have to come in and pull up the 240p test suite and run different calibration checks, and then calibrate the monitor for geometry and colors, things even a little bit more. It needs to be color or calibrated for like grayscale, and then also brightness and contrast. So that's another couple of hours. So you could see how this job of a restoration on one of these can turn into something that's a whole day, even if you include the time that you would spend cleaning this. If a problem arises, you're talking about even more time. So there's still a couple of hours of things to do, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a quick break, about 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going to leave the stream running. I'm going to switch over to the other camera. Stream will be running. I'll leave this set going with everything like you see, and I will come back and join you in a minute. I'll put a note here in the chat also if anybody shows up. But I will come back and hang out with you guys for a little bit. We'll have a quick chat and talk about just anything that you guys are into. But thanks. Just give me a 1 minute or 5 to 10 minute break.
There is no place I'd rather be they're right here next to you. And I truly love to talk about your lovers, old and new. You never spare me details as you confide in me. I smile and give advice, but cannot tell you how I feel. How easy it would be to fall for you, but that of course is something I won't do. 'Cause we've agreed between you and me, we're nothing more than friends. How silly it would be to put this friendship to an end. How crazy that would be, yet here I am, falling in love again. Stupid I would be to still have faith, to never stop believing that one day, when time is right and stars align, our views would coincide. We'll see the world in color, though they say that love is blind. How stupid that would be, indeed, that's true. And still I'm waiting for you. I am forever waiting for you.
All right, coming back to you live here again, and thank you for the break. Hope some people stayed in there and got to check out the CRT for me. So we just let it run for a little bit here, and then I actually will, as it runs, I'm gonna get it set up to run through and check out some calibrations with you. We'll check out some geometry calibrations. And as we get ready for that, I'm going to need to set up some different things on the CRT, because I don't really want to, while you can start with these color balancing from this composite video signal, you really don't want to obviously use the composite video signal if you have to, unless you have to, I'm sorry. For things like geometry, you want to use a better pattern, just a regular, and you want to use RGB or component, but we're going to use RGB, so I'm going to change things over to RGB. Let me show you a couple of interesting things that I have here that I'll be using to help with my measurements. First off, I have this old measuring tape, and it is soft and plastic. And the reason I bring this up is because this can go against a tube, a curved tube, and we can use it to make physical measurements and get numbers, so that we can make sure our aspect ratio is correct for the most part. That's the most important thing, at least to me. So we can use this now on this smaller tube that's 14 inches. We can also use this, this is a flexible ruler. And it's not very big. It goes up to 5 inches, but that's plenty for a 14-inch screen. We should be able to do just about everything we need with this, so we can use this to assist also. Hey, yeah, so if you've arrived in the break, it's okay. We're about to look at some calibrations on this set that we just got done restoring as far as like the hardware is considered. So again, everybody's been here knows, but we've gone through now and we've restored 3 boards, the power supply, and the neck board were done in yesterday's stream. And then today's stream, we started off recapping the main A board. And that's our deflection cap kit in that third one. We did find some bad caps. Some that read bad, some that looked bad. And prior to me doing this cap kit, the set was working fine. So let's get now. I'm going to go over here, grab some gear, and I'm going to plug this, and we're going to get set up to RGB. I won't need the waveform monitor for this because I can't use it on RGB anyway. So I'm going to get that set up. Give me a brief moment here and just watch things as they happen. Let's see if I'm able to kind of spin this thing around while it's running, so I can show you the adapter. Ooh, just hopped a little curb there. All right, so this is the back of the PVM. I'm going to disconnect this. I just want to get some of these cables out of the way. I won't need that. And then we'll disconnect composite video so that we don't have to worry about that anymore. Doesn't. Get these cables out of the way, leave us with just our power. Now I'm going to plug up my SCART adapter, which gives me, of course, SCART on one end. BNC on the other. We'll use line A. And those connect in the red, green, and blue. There, and then the sync right there. And I always tell people the trick with these CRTs is they are mono speakers, but you can take both your left and right audio for stereo, plug that in to the in and out on that port right there, and it will actually send the stereo speaker into the, or stereo signal into the mono speaker. Now I do have a couple of SCART cables that are SCART to Super Nintendo, and this is an old one from Retro Access, so hopefully it still works. I've got a couple here just in case one doesn't work, and hopefully that won't be an issue, but you just plug this in. The back of the Super Nintendo that has been modified with Voltar's kit. And here we go. Let's spin it back around. And then we need to switch over to our line A component. Or RGB. I'm sorry. We're in RGB. There we go. Glorious and beautiful RGB. Just take a gander at this and see if it's worth everything that everyone is all crazy about, because I think it is. I'll take a sip of my coffee here and get ready for the next part of our journey today. Oh, getting out of focus there. So maybe if I leave my arm here, it'll just stay in focus a little bit, or just out of focus. All right. So as you can tell, things are looking really, really good, really sharp. This is again a 600 line tube. Looks just fabulous. Okay. So let's get in here. I'm not sure that there's a better camera angle than just this. Let me pull myself down here. We'll turn this camera off momentarily. Pull myself over inside here. And I'm going to try and walk you guys through a bit of the calibration process here for our... let me make sure I move my camera so it's a little bit more stable. There we go. We're going to run through some of the calibration again on our set now, because it's been running, I want to say probably 30 minutes, maybe a little less, but we can do that in the time frame we have here. Now, I will warn you that whichever one of these 240p test suites, or turn that light out, maybe that'll help. I don't know. Let me try some lighting tricks to help a little bit. Maybe that less light will help on the screen here, which is more important. Get rid of that moire, any? No, it's even worse that way. So, whatever device you're using to calibrate with, that signal will vary from another device. So, I'm using a Super Nintendo right now, but if I calibrated according to the Super Nintendo and I plug in a Sega Genesis, there's going to be a shift. Now, thankfully, it's not usually a shift more than something vertical or horizontal. But there will be a shift between those consoles. Any console, really. So we go in here, and we're going to just do some quick adjustment and look at our monoscope pattern that Keith Rainey's made. Let me tone down the brightness a little bit on there. And turn it a little bit so you can get a better idea of what I'm looking at. Now, first off, The most important thing to me is getting the screen center and then getting the overall aspect ratio of the set correct. And also I don't want it to tilt any. And you could tell for screen tilt based on the tops and bottoms of that grid we just saw. But what I like to look at again is like a quick judge here on what we're even starting with. Let's look at the length here. That side is just a touch under 3.5 inches, okay? Well, that's wider than it is long, okay? So that means our aspect ratio right off the bat is off. Check it with this. 3.5. We're like 3 1/4, 3 and... We're about 1/8 of an inch off. So we need to get into our service menu by pressing menu, degauss and enter. And the first thing I'm going to do is go on to setting number 6. 60 NOR, 60 def, 60 hertz, deflection, vertical size. Okay? We need that to be bigger. Press it once. 165 is what's at now. Twice. What does that bring it up to? Not enough yet still. So do 2 more. Man, still. 2 more. 3 more. We are almost there, but still a little bit small. That looks about good. Almost. Almost. Yes. There we have it. So the sizes on the side are now matching. So that means our aspect ratio, no matter what else is going on, our aspect ratio is correctly kind of done on the center of this screen. Let's see what that translates on the edge. Pardon me. So get in here and we'll measure the size of this outer square. Seven. And 7. 7 and 7. That's great. So 7 and 7 means the outer edge has the correct aspect ratio. So that's all good. Now let me tell you something. I want to show you what this looked like when we started. I think I could do that pretty easily. You'll be able to see it. Remember how this looks right now, because what it was originally, it's at 176. Look at that. 165 is what it was when we turned it on. And we need to go, these buttons are a little sticky, they need to be cleaned there to get proper aspect ratio. So when it was in, before we even started our calibrations, if we'd have just played Mario, he'd have looked a little bit shorter and fatter. We would have not been flattering to Mario. Now, from this point, let's pull up the rest of the screen. Go back to this pattern. Take it down a little bit. And again, one way we can judge our screen to see if it's tilting any is just see if this is leaning any. Either ones. Is this showing? Are you seeing more of this square down here? More characters in there than this side? Thankfully, this yoke has been set excellently by the factory, so all 4 of these corners are in the right position. So we have no tilting going on, and I don't even see much like convergence problems at all. Everything looks super tight on this. So that's a real positive of a 14-inch that's been set properly. So now, though, we have it, and since we're setting it to the standard of a Super Nintendo, I want to center this image a little bit better than what it is right now. So I need to go to a different setting, right? And let's finish our vertical, before I confuse you and go to horizontal. Vertical setting, vertical center. The best thing for me to look at, again, are the corners and the tops and bottom edges. Is this showing just about the same as this is? If not, then I need to go down a little bit. It looks like I'm showing a little bit more on the bottom than the top, so I do need to go down until pretty much trying to match the dot patterns. That looks pretty close. So there we go. We did need to make a little bit of a vertical adjustment right there. Okay. So that's vertical center. Again, it's going to say NOR deflection, vertical center. Doesn't say 60 this time. Now, if we obviously have an issue where our screen is a little bit too far to this side. See how we don't see any white line on this edge? But we do see white line, and not only do I see white line on this edge, I see black from beyond the image. So I should be able to use video phase. Vertical, again, it says, this is what it says, NOR 60 def video phase. Let's go back to our calibration screen. So, let's see what happens. It's on 144. Yeah, as I expand that and go higher, it goes further that way. So I need to come back and go lower than 144. Quite a bit lower. And there we have it. See it? Now we can see almost equal distances on each side. And it does look like we're a little bit cramped in the middle. Like it's pushing in here. Almost like a waistband effect. Do you see it? It's literally like a waistband effect here. Let me move this. Where we're almost pushing in at the center. We should be able to change that. But we need to go to a higher setting. Let's see if we can fix that any. Sexy. Sexy, baby. Number 13. Sexy. As I expand that sexy, see how it expands that waistband out right in the middle? Doesn't really involve anything else. It was on 150. So I think we still need to go. Goodness, I don't know. That looks better to me, that 165. Yeah, it did look like a little bit of an hourglass. Now look, it's going to look a little bit of like an hourglass. Naturally, it's kind of the way I want it to be, but we don't really want it to be pushing in that far. I mean, it was 15 low. It's 15 too low. So let's get that, let's loosen that belt up a little bit. Now, with this set, you get to change. Let me show you on another input. Push B. The meaningful settings to you for your regular deflection is going to be these numbers 17 and below. Now some of these settings are not going to pertain to you if you're in region, depending what region you're in, it'll say 50 for PAL, or it'll say 60 for NTSC mostly, or 60 hertz. And then it'll give you just blanket ones that are for both. Okay. So that's where you want to stay. Anything over that, you're getting into color and sub settings and other stuff. It's not really pertaining to your deflection. So, I might consider a couple things here now. Like if you're looking at this, the aspect ratio is perfect, but personally, I don't really care too much if this is like a tiny bit squiggly on the edge. Like I could sit here and nitpick the crap out of this and try to, work it and straighten it out and maybe get it a little bit better and then leave that line there. Or I can not really worry about it because I'm not going to be looking at it all the time anyway. But the majority of the inner sanctuary of our screen is beautiful. So we're pretty fortunate we don't have to make a lot of adjustment here. What I will do though is I'm going to expand this image so that we're using up the entire real estate of our tube. And once we use up that real estate, and you can do this, someone mentioned in the chat, Shadow A00 mentioned that we could do this using the overscan settings and those settings in the menu, which we can. So let's consider that. What if we did that? So anyway, first off, let's go back to what I was talking about on the way I want this to look. I want to expand this a little bit so I can use up as much of this screen as possible. And then I want to also maintain, as I expand that horizontally, I'm going to have to expand it vertically. So I'm going to lose vertical image if I overscan it a little bit. But I'm going to use as much of my tube, and it's going to look super crisp. It's going to look super clean, and the aspect ratio is going to be good. But I can't just expand this horizontally again and not expand it vertically to where you're not going to see like the top 3/4 of these lines. They're going to go out of the image. They're going to be up here in the image off screen because I want to expand and I want to maintain that aspect ratio. Aspect ratio is an important thing when you're using it. So let's do that now. So we need to go in here and go to horizontal size, and that's going to be on both 50 and 60 hertz, doesn't matter. Okay, so we go there, and the first thing I need to do is expand this incrementally. So we're at 118 to start. You can see I really have to push it to get it over there all the way. It's on 143 now, and then that actually showed me that I'm a little bit off on my centerness. So I need to push it a little bit. These buttons definitely need a little bit of deoxit in them. So something like that. Look, I've used up all the vertical edge. And, but to balance that out, now I need to expand it vertically because the vertical edge over here on the horizons is all the way to the edge. So now I need to expand this to where the sides again match. And you can just use the same tactic we did before. So now we've got to get the outside, we got to get it over. We've expanded the whole image one bar on our beyond 3. So we got to go over here to vertical size, and we got to go up a little bit more. Let's try 181. That's pretty close. 183. All right, so now we've set that up, but look at what it's done. It's caused us to lose a lot of that image you saw in this corner. Same thing up here. But we've used all of our real estate here, and so now we're going to have a much bigger image. Now, the one thing I can tell you is that the pin amp looks a little bit off on this, just from looking at it. And pin amp is right here. Let's try that. It's 137 right now. If we go up, will we get down or? Yeah. It's hard for me to see from that angle. That looks a little bit better to me, like we're flattening that edge out. And just looks a lot better to me. So I'm going to hit, now if you're working through this stuff and you want to save your settings, hit degauss once, it'll say right. Hit it again, you'll get an asterisk above that. Now it's saved that data. Okay? So that's what that screen looks like. But if I went and I pulled this screen up on a different console, this whole image could shift to the right and down, you know, because it's going to have a different blanking and vertical blanking and horizontal blanking setting than the image for the Super Nintendo. So you can't just set this. You can set all the goodies about aspect ratio and it'll stay, but you may have to shift it vertically or horizontally, just the phase and the center, depending on what you're using. Or just deal with the fact that you might have a little bit of image loss. So what I like to do is go back here and we'll pull up Super Castlevania again. And let's just let it run through. And I don't know whether we'll be able to really tell anything majorly looking different, but the sets, you know, that's a pretty good calibration just to do really quickly. There really wasn't a lot of problems with this set to begin with. So we'll just let it run. I don't know if anybody has any other questions. I'll probably try to hang out for another 10 minutes. And if anybody has any questions, I'll get to them. I'll be glad to. We'll let it run for a minute and just maybe we can switch out the game. Speaking of Mario, let's pull good old Mario up for the new Mario movie. So, this I probably won't. I mean, I know I won't have any other streams coming before this weekend or anything. This is going to do it. And then next week, Lewis and I will get together for an episode of the Cathode Ray podcast early in the week. And I can hopefully sucker him into doing a live show, maybe right after we do our recorded episode. Either way, I'll do another, I'll try to get together with somebody next weekend, maybe Friday evening again, if I can. So a week from today to do a live stream. I put out a poll today or yesterday on Twitter as well as YouTube about what I will do next. And it looks like the results of that poll are everybody wants to see an RGB modification again. So I don't mind doing it. I put it there as one of the options, and it's no surprise to me that people want to see that. So I have a Sony KV that I talked about in the last one, similar to that. Similar to the KV I showed off in the last stream. I'm going to actually do an episode. I try to keep it 15 minutes to 20 minutes. Tight episode about how to RGB mod that one. James had a question. Does a 14M2MDU use the same caps you used for the 14? Yes. But you may run into a situation where you have an additional cap or something. It's really hard to tell There's a couple of different board modifications, and the boards, it's not really of a big difference, but some of them do have one or two more capacitors. So the list may look a little different, or you might find another cap, but for the most part, that should be pretty much well on the same. Marco asked, what about fixing linearity warping? And that's going to be done in the calibration suite also. And that'll be done with the linearity settings if you have that. First off, you need to have your yoke set properly, so it's got to be really good. And then from there usually are a couple of linearity settings, like in this monitor. If I go back into that service menu, go back. Marco will go back here and look at the 240p test suite again. And if I pull up that, the reason I like this older thing is it actually has a linearity check. And if I go in here, I can put this tube in underscan mode and check and still make linearity adjustments while it's in underscan. But the good thing is I can see all the circles. And the most important thing for linearity is to make sure that these circles are like the same size and they're round and they're not oblong in any direction. And just like the other tests we did, in patterns, you can measure, the size of these circles and make sure they match. And, if you need to expand it one way or the other, you can use those. You can use your horizontal and vertical settings, but you can also use these settings in this monitor. So this has a number 14. It says vertical linearity. What else have we got? 15 vertical bow, but vertical angle. Some of these will have, depending on the model, you might have more linearity settings, one additional one, two additional ones. But this, as you can see, will help fix warping. Like if I go and I expand this, it should make that, see how these became oblong? And as I move it down, it moves the other end down. And if I back out of that and hit gong, it should take it back to the setting it was before. No, it didn't. Okay. Anyway. Get that back up to the setting. It was pretty good. So it really depends on the set. That's a difficult thing. Some of the sets don't have any vertical linearity settings. So it's really just all dependent on what your set actually has. So that's one way to check it. Then you can turn that underscan off. Back to that screen. Let's see if anybody has any other questions. You having weird inputs on the sync in your 14L1 that you've modified? I don't know. I would go back and make sure that there's nothing that, the shielding on the cables is good and stuff on anything that you installed in it. I don't know. I've never done that modification. I was planning on doing an N series modification, but the N series monitor that was supposed to be working is actually broken. Oh yeah, James, I've been watching, he's bringing up Corey and Chris from Retro Gaming Quarterly for their podcast. Yeah, they do have a good podcast, and I know Corey really well. I just know how it is too when you try to schedule these things. There'll probably come a time when we'll do something together. There's a lot of people that that aren't on regularly, I want to also have people on that are in the scene that don't, maybe they do things on their own a lot, or they're not they're not normally on as much as guys like me and Corey. He's on a couple times a week. You can see him on either his new podcast with Chris and also the My Life in Gaming stream. So I love talking to them. They're good friends, and I would definitely, of course, love to have them on. But as far as like this is a new streaming thing, so maybe I will ask them as opposed to like going on the podcast. But I definitely want to have more people come on. I've got a lot of friends that you guys probably know and know their channels, and I'd like them to come on, and they said they would, so we'll do it. All right, Preems gave me a question. I have a 1943MD. The power-up bong is very loud. I wouldn't be concerned about that bong. That's a good degauser. That's all that is, a good strong degauser. Brrr, give you that, make your knees weak. That makes the ground shake. I wouldn't be upset about that one at all. Thankfully the 43 and 40 series are really well built PVMs. Just keep an eye on any geometry issues, waviness in the screens. You'll eventually come to a point where you'll have to get that recapped because it's older. But those tend to last very long. All right, Felipe, thank you for the $9.99 super chat. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the stream, Steve. How are you liking streaming live so far? I've actually been enjoying it, but I'll be honest with you, it is a little bit different of a stressful thing, because a lot of people that are in the same level or industry, whatever you want to call it, creator level that I am, we're always nervous about trying different things, and a lot of people have negative feelings about streaming as far as like how it would impact the numbers on their actual channel. And I don't know what to say to that, except it's probably true. Me doing a lot of streams probably isn't going to be a healthy thing for me to try to grow this. If I was concerned with like numbers and stuff and only concerned with growing YouTube subscribers and views, then live streaming on the main channel like this would not be a smart thing, apparently. But at the same time, I don't want to have to, at this point, change things up, start a different channel, really. I don't mind doing it on this channel. My whole goal is different from becoming some like YouTube phenomenon, watched person. I want more or less for people to be able to work on these things, learn more about these monitors. I feel like there's a big benefit to doing it live where I can interact with everybody. And then the good thing about doing it live is it's kind of done and then it's done. But the problem is it's like YouTube isn't really going to go then after the fact and push those streams as something for somebody to come back in and watch much later on. I have a couple of 100 people that will, but it's not like as far as like the numbers, as far as algorithmically, it's probably not a great thing, but I'm not as concerned with that. And I feel like it's more of a help to the community. As long as people are willing to watch them and enjoy them, then I'll be content with doing them. I set up this whole lab, and I'm finding out where it's kind of like I'm stretching it to the limits on things, because again, like I had to tone down one of the cameras today because it was starting to lock up, and I know that this system has limited my computer, so I had to tune one camera down, like 30, from 60 frames to 30 frames. Then I have another issue where if I power up too many things, like something will cut out of power. Thankfully, the first thing that cuts out of power is my monitor that I'm monitoring the stream with. So it'll just cut itself off, and then it'll cut itself off as like a warning. So then that's why I have to go here and I have to make sure that all these devices, not everything is turned on, because I'm maximizing my amps for this outlet, and it's all safe. And like I've got it all grounded in these incredible like protective equipment so nothing gets damaged. At the same time, I'm trying to figure out what exactly works. Yeah, thanks, Travis. I appreciate that. That's what I kind of hope. And I think that the more I do this, it'll get better. I think that I'll probably stick with this kind of theme of the jazzy music for a while, relaxed, chilled out. Yeah, I know I do need another circuit, but I don't want to do that. I'm actually just renting my house that I'm in right now, and I've been considering buying it, but then at the same time, I don't know that that's really what I want to do at this point, because, again, if I was going to do something else and I had a different approach, maybe I'd invest my money in a shop that had a better power setup or something, you know? Thankfully, that's one of the tricky things is you try to find background music for videos, and I don't really like a lot of it. A lot of the I mean, I pay extra for this website, and some of the music on there is pretty good, but for the most part, it's like okay, it's not great. But this seems to be a good little genre that you're gonna have a variety to, and you're not gonna like it's not something that everybody listens to all the time. So if it's a little generic, it's fine, and I really like it too. So thanks everybody for the compliments on the music and the stream. Today's 3 hours flew by. Yesterday felt like a little bit of a marathon, but today's 3 hours went a lot faster. And I really can't believe we've gone through now. In the last 2 days, I've done 6 hours of streaming. So I definitely appreciate guys that I've seen some of you here. Anybody who's been here so long. Okay, David R. did ask about the 14M2, similar to this model. Could I use the same cap kit used for this one? I believe. Sorry, that is getting way out of focus right there. I believe that the cap kit for the M2 is slightly different than this one, but it's not like overly different. I need to put down like a little gizmo for the camera to focus on. I wonder if it will do that. Like, I wonder if it'll just focus on that thing and not jump around so much. But it's all a test of things. Like on the stream, I got a new camera right here that I've been trying to use on filming the CRT, but you know, it's so hard to get, especially on live stuff, to get like the focus to go right, the lighting right. Like as I make the lighting right on the CRT, my facial lighting goes down. It doesn't look as good. And then but the good thing is like I can click a bunch of lights here. So I've been pretty preemptive in my thought pattern. I'm really loving the way like this camera or this arm is working. I'm loving the way the desktop camera mount is working. I might need to get a more powerful PC eventually and put it in here, or like take the editing PC and swap it for this one. And that way I'll have a whole lot more powerful machine back here. The main facial camera here is a Sony A5100. Just a solid old camera. Do I like to play the original NES? Yes, I do. Let's see, I'm losing that focus again. I just don't have, or I do have a NES. Yeah, I have the NES over here. Let's see if we can get that to like look any better. I don't know if I can get that to zoom in like on the live, not jump. Like it looks pretty good for a second. But yeah, I do like the original NES, of course. All this stuff. I like anything retro. It's just this is an easier setup for me. One that I use a lot is the Super Nintendo and the Sega. Yeah, the problem is like these are like auto cameras, so I would have to do that, and I'd be sitting around here manually focusing these things. So, but you're probably right. That's what I need to do. The weird thing is like this runs an external. I'm really learning about it, but let's see. Maybe we can play with it a little bit. And it says it's in use. Let's try. Maybe I can try to do some adjustments on it. We'll see if there's any settings, color space, color range, auto detect. See, the issue with this particular camera is, let me check one more screen. I may be able to turn it off. Balance. Autofocus, there we go. Okay, let's try that. And maybe we can get it to turn off. And I probably should have done that a long time ago. But yeah, see, now it's probably gonna look pretty good if it doesn't autofocus all the time. But it has trouble because the light bounces off the screen, you know, and it's just like the light from me on this side bounces off the screen. It's not the easiest way to set up. And then as the screen changes, the camera wants to shift its focus to something else, just like anything. That's why when you do the shots of this in the full dark, you do it in the dark, you turn the lights down on the CRT, and that's how you shoot it, or like the ways that John Lennon talked about in our interview. There we go. Do we have a little sound in there? Okay. So yeah, okay, Master Safer, thank you for the $10 super chat. I really appreciate it. It says thank you for the chill vibes and safer and shared wisdom as always, Steve. Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, well, that's right, Felipe. Whenever it like moves and stuff, and see, it's still, even with autofocus off now, it's got itself off focus. It's still going to do some form of focusing, but yeah, it doesn't like the fact that everything's moving, all the images are changing. It's very difficult. Even, you saw, I just deactivated that and it didn't really helps a little bit, but then it just starts going crazy again. So I don't really know. I'm trying. This one might be better now. The 5100 may be better to switch over through the capture card. That's what I'm using for it. And it's like, see, it's just, yeah. But the main point here is more about the actual like servicing on the CRT, not so much watching. Like I say, you could go watch Digital Foundry, and John, he's an expert on film and CRTs. He could do tutorials for days on that and show everybody all the good secrets. So you have asked, or Jeff asked about the KV1203. I'm not sure I remember that specific one. 1204. Fixing, and I'm not sure what exactly you were referring to as fixing it up like that. You maybe see, look at this now. It's just like it gets out of focus. Wow. This is fun with cameras, right? Wonder if there's any way. No, it doesn't like it at all. It's like it's got to be focusing on something else besides. It's got to pick something, but it's always going to want to focus on something else on the CRT as opposed to like something in front of it. I don't know how to keep it preoccupied, even, you know, no matter how close you get to it. As long as the screen's changing a lot, like it is, it's going to have a difficult time. It looks good like now, and then as soon as it goes into a transition, it'll look bad. I didn't see about that particular one. I don't remember. I'm sorry, that particular KV12. As I said, the next big video that I'm going to do, I'll be doing live streams before then, but I'm going to do a video on RGB modding, and it'll be a 13-inch. Yeah, it's the filming CRT setup. It's like you can get it set up good, but then you're spending an hour setting it up, and then my environment is a little bit difficult. Look, like it seems like right now it's going pretty good. But see, you can still, when it transitions, you can still see my reflection. And then now I've made it mess up and forget what it was doing. RCA True Flat. That's cool. Seasoned salt. I have a Magnavox, I think it is. I was talking about it earlier. Philips Magnavox True Flat or something similar to that. And I've got it's 13 inches. It's upstairs. I'm excited to mess with it a little bit. It was a gift from Bob, Retro RGB. So yeah, we're losing autofocus. All right, everybody. Look, I really, really appreciate you joining me this afternoon. And I hope you all learned something or had some fun. Got to chill out this afternoon and enjoy our relaxing time together. And thank you again. If you came to the stream late and you want to know what happened, you can go back to the beginning. It's been 3 hours, and this is the whole block. Thankfully, everything went successfully. If I get an opportunity, I'll put out a notice and I'll do another stream, and hopefully I can bring on Keith Rainey and we can go through and do some more calibration adjustments, because I think this would be a good set. After it being recapped and ready, I think that would be a good idea to do that with him on stream. So thanks again, everybody, for showing up. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful holiday weekend, and I will see you all next time on the next